I didn't believe that, I could be in a situation where I could live the life I wanted to live, do what I wanted to do on my terms.
When I look at my journey as a solo female founder, these questions have come up more than a few times.
There are actually hundreds of amazing women building in India, building for India, and building really large scalable businesses, right? Which kind of fly under the radar because there's not enough narrative that's being shared about the work that they are doing.
There is a lot of work we've done as a nation around microfinance to empower women at the bottom of the pyramid.
There's no difference between having a woman at work than a man at work.
No conversation on entrepreneurship is ever complete without talking about the women. In fact, no conversation on anything is complete without the women. So MSME Exchange today is proud to host three wonderful women who will talk about the journey of women in entrepreneurship. According to Financial Times, Asian women today account for more wealth than any other part of the world, barring North America. And they will account for 27 trillion worth of wealth by 2026. And since 2019, Asian women have been adding 2 trillion worth of wealth year on year. Clearly, something is happening. So I'm happy to introduce my panel today. Naya Saggi, co-founder, Good Glam Group and Devi Chakra. Hardika Shah, Kinara Capital, and Kanika Tekriwal of Jet Set Go. So that's an interesting panel. So we are all set to go. What's happening in terms of entrepreneurship when it comes to women? Clearly, something is happening in Asia. What is happening? If one of you could take up this question and kick off the conversation.
I mean, I'm happy to start. From an entrepreneur's perspective, I think, Malini, it's been a very interesting time. So it's a bit of a dichotomous situation. So I think the first dichotomy is that, yes, there is, less than 2% of venture capital funding, in the US, and in India, I think it's even less, 0.3%, 0.4% that goes to women-led startups. At the same time, the dichotomy is that there are actually hundreds of amazing women building in India, building for India, and building really large scalable businesses, right? Which kind of fly under the radar because there's not enough narrative that's being shared about the work that they are doing. So I see this dichotomy play out every day in the interactions I have with fellow women entrepreneurs. And I think, I think the efforts that are happening right now, one effort, of course, is about, how do you bring more capital into the women-led entrepreneurship ecosystem? And I think there'll be a whole conversation I'm sure we'll have around that. But I think the other effort we're trying to do as, I think, women entrepreneurs is to get the names, the voices, the stories of women who are building amazing businesses out in public. Because eventually you can't be what you can't see. So I just want to address this dichotomy up front. And, I'm sure the other panelists have a perspective to share.
Hardika, what is your view? Because, a lot of entities today, be it financiers or there are successful other women entrepreneurs who are coming together to ensure that the ecosystem is more equitable when it comes to treating women entrepreneurs. They're given their place under the sun. How hard is it for women to kick off businesses, get funding, to be heard in the entire ecosystem? How hard is it for women today?
Yeah, I mean, look, there is progress, but I would say the road still is still very arduous for any women entrepreneur at starting any kind of business at any level. We work with MSMEs largely, and while we talk about the 60 million MSMEs that are in India today, bulk of them are operated by men. And so we see maybe 10, 12% are women owned and operated. And the part of that reason, and this is I like the idea of the concept that you're talking about, the dichotomy on both sides, right? There is the funding PE dichotomy that you still can't get female founded startups to get funding, or less than 1% get funding. But on the other end of that spectrum, what you see is that women also don't have access to finance. So they end up taking informal sources of finance that are at high cost, that small businesses, just cannot get out of the informality. And then how do you build your credit history? How do you build your financial history? How do you build something that you can go to the next level for your small business and be able to move your small business from this micro enterprise into the larger MSME part of the segment. There is a lot of work we've done as a nation around microfinance to empower women at the bottom of the pyramid, and that has had great results. But the next challenge is to move them from that microfinance model of 10,000, 12,000 rupee loans to 1 to 10 lakh rupee loans, and that's where we see the biggest struggle right now, where women don't have the formality of business or access to formal capital to move them up. So this, I think, is is definitely there. I would say the other thing on the dichotomy that you were talking about is, I do feel that it is, while there are female founded businesses don't have access to financing or capital, I also feel just in regular professional universe, we are seeing a huge dropout of highly educated women who are coming out of the workforce. And that's to me, it's such a shame. I think we spent a lot of years trying to build this and bring people into the workforce. And now we are seeing a very different universe where wealth, because of wealth creation, perhaps in the middle class, that there is an exit that should not happen. And how do we prevent that collectively? Because if we can prevent that, then we can build the ecosystem and we can build maybe the entrepreneurial side of things too. But those are some of my thoughts.
I think I hold that thought. You talked about women dropping out of the workforce. That's been documented. The numbers are shocking. India kind of leads that entire ranking, unfortunately. But what is the reason that even in entrepreneurship that you see women either are hesitant to come forward, or they kind of back out, or what is it that is leading to women opting out? Is it just plain toxicity? What is it?
Yeah, I would say there are three things, right? One is the lack of support in the system. That could be from family, that could be from networks we don't build, or we build but that are not enough, or don't push us forward fast enough. That's sort of that lack of systemic support. The second is lack of access to capital. Okay, I got the support, but I still need money. Where do I go to get the money to do that? And then the third thing is just the lack of how we sometimes hold ourselves back from dreaming big, right? And saying, why can't we think of an IPO as a business, right? And that, I think those three things just kind of prevent us from or pull us in different directions and instead of pushing us forward.
I think it's time to bring in Kanika into this conversation when you're talking about dreaming big. Kanika, over to you. What was the reason you thought of entrepreneurship, and what was your biggest obstacle?
So I think for me, there was no second doubt that I want to run my own business. I want to do my own business. I belong to a business family, and the only thing I've seen people do is create value. In fact, when I wanted to do a job, I remember my father saying, "Hamare ghar ki ladkiyan dusron ke liye kaam nahi karti." And that was like my biggest setback. I said, "What do you mean? Where is this coming from?" So I think coming from a very, very traditional Marwari background, the only way to break out of it was to do what I wanted to do, follow my dreams and, pursue them. And I think it takes a lot of courage and perseverance to actually do that. And as much as we may say that, today I very proudly go out and say, okay, it's the best time to be a woman entrepreneur. There's no better time than now for women to get into business and stuff like that. We have to be very conscious of the fact that this is only for a very small part of society. This is the immediate strata where Navya, people like me, all of us hang out, we meet each other. There's a very, very small part of society which actually accepts women starting up, women creating businesses, or women being able to create businesses. I've had a very close friend recently who wanted to start something in media, and her in-laws, her husband, everyone sat her down and said, listen, you take the money, you go shopping, you do this, you do that. You really think you'll be able to do this? Who'll take care of this? Who'll take care of that? And when the first question mark starts in your immediate ecosystem, I don't think as a human being you have the power to have faith in the rest of the ecosystem. If people in your own, first degree don't believe in you, don't believe that women can do stuff. So I think it's a societal mindset which is changing. I won't say that, it's the same as it was during our parents' time or in the last 15 years. But, the way I see things going, like Harvika said, today we try to have one woman in every cockpit. I've had women pilots, leave the company recently saying that, we want to have kids and we want to take care of our families and do stuff like that. And then what happens there? Organizations start changing policies. Organizations start looking at doing things differently because you yourself are not sure that are these initiatives going to work? Are you doing the right thing? Are you doing the right thing as a business? I've had a friend who was at a very senior position recently, resigned, and I asked her why did you resign. She said, if I don't spend this time with kids now, when am I going to do it? And I'm not saying these are easy questions to answer. I'm sure all of us suffer with the same problems. But what I'm trying to say is that, it's a double-edged sword. It's not just that it's society to blame or our ecosystem to blame or the people around us to blame. Even women themselves need to take a decision as to what do you want to do, what do you want to build out for yourself, and what is the path you want to leave for other women to follow. Today as an organization, if I'm going to reconsider policies that I'm making to support women and have more women on top, I've got to have women support that to make it happen, right? So I think we're still very far from having that situation where we say, okay, women at work is, I wouldn't use the word normal, but there's no difference between having a woman at work than a man at work. And it's a very heavy question if you look deep into it. Whilst it may sound very politically incorrect, I don't think we're at a position today where women are treated equally at work.
Right. Interesting. I was about to ask that question again to you, and in fact, all three of you. Why only to both of you? Very often men tell me in my industry, particularly, I've been told that the reason why there are lots of women up to the entry and mid-level, but by the time the pyramid starts narrowing, there are very few women or hardly any on top. And the reason I'm told is that, this is a difficult industry, long hours, women don't want to take on responsibility. But one day I was walking out of office after a very long day, late night, and I saw there were like 7 women at the elevator at 11:30 in the night. And that was the time I asked myself, like, what's going on? Is it really the timing, demanding jobs, family, children, that women are not making it to the top or getting their due or their place under the sun? What is it actually? Is it the system not being welcoming women enough? Or is it that women want to take the easy way out and say, I need to have kids, so therefore I'm opting on? What is it? I'm not able to get this, quite frankly.
So Malini, maybe I can address some of that, right?
Yes,
so
please do.
It's interesting. I want to go back to Hardika's point in terms of women leaving the workforce. My mother's generation had more women in the workforce than my generation does, right? Which is shocking, to say the least. Now, what does this mean for us? It means we have lesser role models today, right? So when you're talking about, you looked around you, you saw the 11 women and you said, this is normal. It was normalized for all of you to be working those hours. It was normalized, therefore, for the institution and the organization and therefore the overall state machinery to acknowledge that women would be working later hours and that we have to, create an infrastructure that's safer for them, that's secure for them, that, keeps these sort of working hours into context when we are planning ahead for a workforce that is working late, and that includes women, right? But unfortunately, there's so few of us today that none of these sort of large-scale infrastructural organizational change is happening because people are like, it's just a few exceptions. It's not the norm. So I think the only answer I would have here, which is like, to continue sort of pushing, and I think initially there will need to be a bit more of a progressive policy, a bit more of a push, which may not seem very fair in the beginning, but which is the only way to move things forward, to have more women take on leadership roles, actively nurture, like literally create, I would say, if it requires that, a quota system to have more women leaders at the top. Because once you start breaking that glass ceiling and people start seeing other women, in leadership roles, and there'll obviously be questions on capability, etc., because, quotas, but that happens with everybody who succeeds, right? And that's okay. But if you start seeing role models of people like you, and if they, take it on themselves to encourage other women to sort of rise up the ladder, share their stories of how they made it happen, how they made it work, how they manage late nights, how they manage work life, etc., right? Then there's a whole change in the narrative, in the way people approach a profession that happens. I'll give you an example. We recently came out with this report of 100 women entrepreneurs, right? With another leading publication. And, the kind of messages we got Malini, were crazy. We had parents who were sitting their daughters down and saying, see, this is the definition of entrepreneurship. This is what it means to be an entrepreneur. See the businesses these women have set up. They were all first generation women entrepreneurs, right? And the diversity of it, the scale of it was like amazing to have on one, like 100 women profile in one place, right? So I think when you start hearing these stories, they become real to you, not just as individuals, not just as women alone, but also to families, also to peers, male peers, by the way, male sponsors, and also the organization at large. I think that's really important to have, right?
Super. I agree with you. I totally agree with you that I kind of didn't have the women role models to aspire for and say, I want to be like her. She's an editor. I want to become an editor like her. They were there, but they were not ever on top of their game or, leading organizations. And that makes a big difference, right? Let me toss this question to Hardika. Hardika, what do you think that can women manage family, kids, entrepreneurship as well? Because when hiring is happening, I was talking to a woman CEO and she didn't make it to a top job. And when I asked her, she said, I inquired and I was told that the board felt that she would be a distraction. It's a publicly stated thing. In one of my panels, she spoke and she said that, and she is a CEO, right? And she said, I was wondering why I was in my late 40s. I was, all the tick boxes had been marked, right? She was capable. She'd been around competence wise, everything. But yet the CEO job eluded her. And she was told that you'll be a distraction to the board. And earlier on in her life, when she was younger, they said you're of a childbearing age, therefore you'll go away and have kids. So therefore, now does this come in the way of entrepreneurship as well? Employment, no doubt, this is a big factor. Women want to have kids, they want to take it easy, they don't want to work hard. Is the standard argument that you get. Is this true even for entrepreneurship? And is this what consideration comes in the way when you're looking to build a business, when you're going and talking to people to build a team or to get capital, etc.? Does this become part of the narrative?
Yeah, well, first I have so many thoughts going through my head. So first of all, on the, women want to take it easy and motherhood, I'm not sure that's easier. I think
it isn't, but that's the excuse.
The mentality. No, I know. I totally understand what you're saying, but I'm saying the mentality people have is like, ghar pe baith ke bachcho ko sambhalna hai, right? That's actually as much, if not harder work sometimes than taking a job where you have a structured day, right? So I think that's part of the mentality that has to be broken, the systemic breakdown of bias, so to say, right? But I also think, to Naya, what you were saying, when your mom's generation had more women in the workforce, part of what I feel is happening in India, and maybe this is a global thing, right? We have the whole concept of the millennials and, gig economy. And so there is a shift that's happening on how we perceive work in general. And that shift is perhaps trickling through in what we see, whether it's men or women, and how we want to interface or interact with what work is in a country which has had phenomenal economic growth in the last 2 decades, that we are able to make these choices now that perhaps the generation before us could not. And so you kind of, and so if I take the same thought process into entrepreneurship, there are entrepreneurs by choice. And certainly, Kanika says that was the choice for her. It was a no choice that she had to be the entrepreneur. But there's also entrepreneur, because you have, by necessity, because you have to be, right? When I look at my journey as a solo female founder, these questions have come up more than a few times in, when investors come to meet you, how serious are you? How committed are you? Why don't you just start an NGO if you want to really focus on financial inclusion? Just go start an NGO, right? And you kind of shake your head and walk away and realize that's not the right partner or the right investor for you. And similarly, we have a 50% majority women in our leadership, in our management teams, right? And it's to your point, it takes that effort. It takes that effort to search, it takes that effort to cultivate, it creating the room at the table for women to be there. And because of that, today, we have our entire, if I look at our head office, 40-50% of our head office is women, and people look up to these women. They go to them for advice. They seek them for whatever challenge they might have, even in their personal life, with their family, lack of support, or whatever it is, to balance that. So when you ask, look, whatever said and done, we will, as women, have to bear an unproportional share of the home, the house, the family, the care, elder care, children care. It's just it. And you know what? We're good at it. We are good multitaskers. We're good jugglers. I think we can ride that. We can use that and build this support structure as an organization, whether it's for women who are working late or whether it is making sure they get their maternity benefits. Because how many times have we heard that, right? Women are going to get hired or they're going to get pregnant. Let's just tell them to resign instead of give them the maternity benefit and create that space so they can come back to work and continue on. How it really is going to take more women in leadership positions to be able to create new structures and policies to accommodate and integrate all of this for a successful shift of mindset.
Radhika, tell me about, if you can share a live example of women or a particular case study of a woman wanting to start a business. What are the things that you first do with those women? What are the kind of awareness building? Then the next step is validating whatever it is that the business idea they've got, and the whole entire journey of from idea to execution. What are the key? What is a path? What does a path look like before she's ready to glide?
Look, let me just level set. I mean, we are a fintech lender, so we give loans to small businesses that are operating. Now we have a Har Vikas program, so where a women that either it is jointly or solely owned and operated by women, we give a discount to this program so that they can have more capital in play for their businesses. What we are looking for are businesses that have already shown some sign of operations. If they're a manufacturing business, 6 months of operations, they've got the facilities, the machinery, they've started, they've got some orders, they're working through it. What we are doing beyond that, which is the more interesting part, is we have a special networking program for women. We have a Grow with Kinara series that we do, which talks about everything outside of financing, how they can get onto the TREADS platform of the government, how to use Canva for marketing or WhatsApp for marketing, right? Other ways to help them think of their business, plan their business, integrate marketing, integrate other programs that are out there by the government or local area programs that allows them to get access, and most importantly allows them networking, bringing women who are small business owners to talk to each other in vernacular in a small setup, which gives them confidence that others like me and gives them a network they can rely on, right? We forget that there is the India and the Bharat, right? And we are all here speaking, in English today, but most of my women entrepreneur, the businesses we support actually only speak in vernacular. How do we build this setup for them and create this ecosystem for them, even at a local, regional, smaller level that allows them to plug in? So those are all the initiatives we work on, and we have seen some tremendous shifts, right? Small business owners who said, I never thought that I would be running this, that my business would grow 10 times. I was able to do that because you helped me think through how to get to the 10 times. And that's really the powerful story. I mean, I've got goosebumps just talking about it, so that's what we do.
That's great. Naya, how did you think of getting into entrepreneurship, and what was like the tipping point that made you realize that this is for me? And what are your lessons as a woman entrepreneur? What are your lessons that you can share with other women entrepreneurs about the journey and the biggest challenges that you faced?
Sure. I mean, I think very similar to Kanika. I think it was almost like a default, like what I was programmed to do in my life was entrepreneurship. I mean, I had been a consultant. I was at McKinsey and Company. I love management consulting, worked extensively in healthcare while consulting, and I went back to consulting after my business school. But, every time I was going back to the corporate world, this whole thing about being able to create something of value, take it to scale, have people use it, love it, and, kind of leave a legacy behind, right, was what would just keep me up at night. And I found my calling in, what I call myself entrepreneur 1.0 with Baby Chakra, right? Which was when we built out Baby Chakra, and that was in service of mothers across the country. We reached more than 25, 30 million mothers had more than 10,000 doctors, raised hundreds of millions of baby chakra babies on the platform, right? And then, Entrepreneur 2.0 was when, Darpan and I and Priyanka and I met, and then we, came together to form the Good Glam Group, right? And that's become, an amazing digital first FMCG company, which is South Asia's largest, right? So I think in all of this, right, I think why entrepreneurship for me was the ability to be able to create something, take it to scale and generate value for whoever we touched in that life cycle of creation. So yeah, that's been my story. I think the toughest time for me was probably when, I was pregnant and I was fundraising, and I've shared this story before, but I was in the last round. I was meeting the IC actually in one of my larger fundraisers as a single entrepreneur at Baby Chakra. And I was 9 months pregnant, and everything, all my diligence, everything had been it was all okay. Right. I think what was strange for me to, however, hear was, let's come back in a quarter and revisit this deal. And nothing would have changed in a quarter except for the fact that I would have had a 3-month-old baby. Right. So it was interesting. It was an interesting time. But, I think it's lessons that you learn along the way. So today, when I sit and mentor and I work, and I'm very passionate about working with entrepreneurs, both men and women, when I work with them and when I sort of hear their stories, I think the one thing I tell them is, of course, take comfort in the gender that you have and get empowered by it, but don't let that hold you back in circumstances where it has even the slightest chance to, right? You have to overcome it. Entrepreneurship for men and women is tough, right? So you, as a woman, you might have to fight that 10x harder, but you're out to achieve a goal. Just stay single-mindedly focused on your goal and just work towards it, and nothing will succeed like success. And eventually the goal is yours to hit. You want to leave a legacy. You want to build something of value. The naysayers or detractors, just ignore them, just move forward with single-minded focus. That's the only thing I tell anyone who comes my way. And I think it's worked for me so far. So hopefully it'll work for the others who try to.
Have you ever tried to call out these, like, really?
I have. Now I have, Malini, I think early on in my days, and I think that's the whole power of, support structures and networks as well, right? Because I think now as entrepreneurs, both men and women, we have these informal networks where we discuss a lot of, the people we want to work with, the people we want to build with, the people we want to raise financing from as well, right? So there are a lot of informal conversations that happen through the entrepreneur ecosystem today. And I think those have also given each of us strength. So, I'll give you an example, right? So when we did the feature on the 100 women, there were women who were called out and said that, oh, why is there yet another list? And I think women basically stood up on their own. Men stood up, actually. So, we actually passed, one of our growth hacks was to get entrepreneurs to support this list, right? And interestingly enough, we had more than 300, 400 people sign up, out of which was a 50% men base of entrepreneurs who said, yes, we believe in this list. We want to support this list. We need more women out there to get inspired by this list, and also men to know that amazing women, peers, and entrepreneurs exist. So I think what is happening now, the narrative is actually changing. People realize it makes sense. It is the right thing to have women in business. And I think we're finding our support structures and networks with at least these like-minded people as a starting point. And that empowers all of us to call out the stuff that should not be happening in the ecosystem today.
Right. Super. Kanika, can women have it all? Is my favorite question. Can we?
I see no reason, Malini, why not? Today I think it's all over here, right? It's all in the head. And, personally, I believe that everything's in your head. It's up to you to go and do what you really want to do. And it's what is the definition of having it all? Today I'll give you an example where when I didn't want to get married to my husband for the longest time. And we wouldn't spend a lot of time with each other. And I would always be complaining. I'll be like, we're meeting once a month for one day. How is this going to work? My life is more busy. La, la, la. But your business is 200 times the size of mine. So, I sat him down one day and I said, look, I think I've got to quit working. And I couldn't believe my own ears that I was saying that. I said, if I have to if we've got to make this work, I probably have to quit working. And he turned around and he told me, no, what you do gives you so much happiness. I'll quit working. I'll sit at home. You go do what you have to do. And that was a flipping point for me. I said, of course, we'll get married now. There's no getting out of this right now. But, I never believed that this would ever happen myself. I didn't believe that, I could be in a situation where I could live the life I wanted to live, do what I wanted to do on my terms. If you asked me this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would always say, you've got to compromise somewhere. You've got to, fit in your goals, your dreams, your aspirations with those of others, your family, society, etc. But today, having experienced it myself, I think if you truly believe in what you want, and if you truly believe in your own capabilities of achieving it, there's absolutely nobody in the world that can stop you from doing it. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying you're going to get everything on a platter on day one. And I'm not saying it's not going to be a battle. But ultimately, it's up to you to fight this battle to get where you want to get. I'm often asked, what is work-life balance? What is work-life balance? According to me, doing what makes you happy the most is work-life balance. Today, if I want to work on a Sunday, I will work the whole Sunday, but I'll take a Thursday off. Or I'll work 20 days and take 3 days off. But, that's my way of establishing work-life balance. So again, like you said, can women have it all? They can have more than they want. More than all is what I would say. But it's up to women to believe in themselves, to go out there and, believe that they can actually have it all and move. But the world is yours. You put your finger on it and it's yours. But you've got to make it happen for yourself. There's no one who's going to come and do this for you. You've got to be able to speak out loud, ask for what you deserve. A lot of times I'm afraid of going and asking customers for money that they owe us for months. And I said, then I look back at myself and say, I'm asking for what is mine. And the same thing, if I tell my CFO, go and recover this money, he'll sit there, make 5 phone calls, get stuff going. And I'll still be wondering, should I ask? What is the person going to think? What is the relationship going to be? And why I say this is because so many times women are afraid to ask for what they deserve. We've been, brought up in this manner where we think doing the right thing is being polite. We're scared to get up and ask for increments. We're scared to stand up and ask for time off.
I deserve the top job. Women don't ask for it.
Absolutely.
They believe in it.
Malini, promotion is still a big thing, but something as simple as leave. I did a very big case study in my own company on this. When men want leave, they will simply, send you a mail saying, I need to go here, please, these many days off, blah, blah, blah. Women will think 5 times. If a man writes, it's my son's birthday, I'm going to take the day off. Bingo, it's done. But if the woman wants to ask for her son's birthday, she'll build a whole story around it, that I wasn't there last birthday and I want to do this party and I want to do this. So small things like this, why do we feel ashamed asking for what we deserve, what is rightfully ours? We can only have it all if we have the courage to go out there and ask for what we rightfully deserve. By asking for leave, by asking for promotion, for asking for right pay. You're not doing anyone else a favor but yourself. So you've got to keep going out there and asking for what you deserve is what I believe.
True. I was talking to another.
Add one thing to that.
Please do.
The question about can we have it all? My answer is usually yes, we can, but not all at the same time.
Yeah.
Not in the same order.
Yeah, that's sage advice. I would say that you can't have it all at the same time. That's a super advice. I want to ask one more question. We are running out a little bit on time, but I'll still try and squeeze in what I want to, which is that I was talking to another woman on one of the sellers on one of these e-commerce platforms. She took to entrepreneurship after her husband died because there was an issue. She wasn't educated. She couldn't get a job. The one thing that really touched me when she said that there are times when things don't work when you take your first baby steps into business, and that you may not find buyers, you may not find takers, it will look like it's not working. And those are the times you need to keep it all together. Because then when it does, if you give up, then you will never know that it could have worked. What is the one piece of advice all of you women will give to women who are either aspiring or are just taking baby steps into the entrepreneurial world?
I mean, it's exactly what I say. Actually, don't ever give up. And I think that, okay, so let me sort of give you 3 points, right, that I think are my golden rules, right? One is that success and failure are both fleeting, right? So I think it's really important to keep things in perspective when you're an entrepreneur, because you could have the highest highs and the lowest lows in pretty much the same 24-hour period. And that does not define who you are as an individual. So I think it's important always to, keep a bit of equanimity through your journey as an entrepreneur, through both success and failure. I think it's super important. And it's difficult, including for me, because I'm a very passionate person and I get like quite excited by the success and equally sort of demoralized by the failure. But that's something I've learned over a longer period of time, right? The equanimity over success and failure, because both are fleeting. The second, I think, is don't ever give up. I think that's extremely critical because, tomorrow is a new day. If you go through something which is, which has you'd be surprised. I mean, there were times when we literally thought we'd be running out of cash, and something or the other, you keep at it, you meet investors, you meet your customers, you get money in, money's the lifeblood of your business, and you live to sort of fight another day, right? So don't ever give up until, of course, it's completely irrational. And I think that's where you need the third piece, which is a set of very objective supporters, advisors, and people who will be your cheerleaders, but will equally be your mirror, right? And I think that third community is super critical to have as an entrepreneur, because, entrepreneurship can be very lonely. You can't, Kanika has also shared, it's difficult to sort of share some of the more difficult parts with your team because, they may not be able to internalize all the ups and downs and process it with the same level of equanimity you might over time be able to. But you have to have a community of fellow entrepreneurs or fellow advisors who can basically look at your business very objectively with you and figure out ways of helping you navigate through some of the tougher times. So I think these are the three things I would advise any budding entrepreneur to keep in mind. And it's almost been like a Bible to me in my now 7.5-year-old journey as an entrepreneur. So yeah.
Spectacular. Very inspiring. Truly, truly, truly. Kanika, why don't you go?
So I think, Malini, the one thing I always say is that for any entrepreneur to achieve their dreams, or for any woman to go out there and achieve what they want to, it's very important to keep believing in yourself. The whole world's going to tell you, you can't do this, you can't do that, don't do this, you'll fail. It's only you, yourself, and I that can, help you overcome every fear, conquer every mountain, scale every height. You have to be your strongest supporter, motivator, believer. Don't look for external gratification. Don't look for people to come and tell you. The same people who told you you're doing a great job will come and tell you you're doing a horrible job. You have to be there for yourself. It's not hard. The journey is like a roller coaster, like Naya rightly pointed out. You're going to wake up at your strongest, and one small thing is going to go wrong, and your whole day is going to collapse. But only you can go out there and be there for yourself. And the other thing I always say, especially to young girls, young startups, people starting out, don't keep chasing capital. I think we waste a lot of time trying to raise money from day one, trying to because I think in India a lot of businesses earlier were glorified not on the basis of what value they were adding, but Flipkart raises $100 million or Snapdeal raises $500 million. Those used to be the traditional headlines earlier. Not about this one's making so much EBITDA or PAT or adding so much value. So I always say, don't chase capital. If you have a great idea, if you have a great business, capital is going to chase you. People like Hardika, the moment they come to know about something, but they go after these people because they want them too, right? So I think those would be my top two pieces of advice. Yeah.
Super. Hardika.
Let me add a couple more things, and I think it's in line with what we heard so far. And I would put a little spin to that, which is about mission alignment, right? So we're talking a lot about believing in yourself, and you are your biggest cheerleader, which is important. But there are going to be so many voices. How do you stay centered to what your mission is, why you're doing this, what is the purpose, and aligning that's really important. Embracing uncertainty. I do feel like the entrepreneurial journey is extremes on twice a day. So how do you just roll with the punches and embrace the changes, whether it's a regulatory change or organizational shift or investors or capital, just being able to have that mental model to know that things will not go as planned and things are just going to be constantly in flux. And then the last thing, which is an advice that I feel especially young entrepreneurs should really, and women in the workforce as well, right? Never eat lunch alone. I think we tend to do that, and it's the perfect opportunity to meet somebody new, meet somebody old, exchange ideas, just talk, or sometimes just a space for us to have lunch and chit chat. But often you will learn far more from those conversations as you go through your organization or outside. And so that's my last piece of advice: never eat lunch alone.
100% back it. It's the best time of the day, especially with girlfriends. If you find, and you do end up finding them at the workplace. I have one question, which is a personal thing, because it's been thrown at me from the time I was in my 20s. You're very hyper, you're very emotional. Women are supposed to be emotional. It's often called many different things. Is it a strength or a weakness?
I think it's a tool used by others to put you down. And so it's up to you to decide what you want to take away from that as a person. I've never heard a man being called aggressive or, emotional for that matter. And yet we continue to have to defend. And I feel like it's time we stop defending and just say, okay, so what? So what?
I think the narrative, Malini, has changed so much in today's settings, in workplaces, in startups and ventures across the world. I think people are embracing and welcoming authentic forms of leadership and authentic forms of workplace participation. So, I mean, there could be a man who's emotional and aggressive. There could be a woman who's emotional, not aggressive, whatever, right? But if that person is who they are and they bring their authentic self to work, I think that is something we need to appreciate more and more. And I think it's changing. I think more and more people are realizing, this is who the person is. This is the authentic version of the person, and maybe emotion is part of it. But people are, I think, respecting people who are very authentic in the workplace as well. And I want to go back to, I think, this thing about work life. And I've said this many times before. There's no work life. There's only life at the end of the day, right? So who you are at work and the energy that the joy that gives you, or the emotions you feel then, and what you feel at home, I mean, you're still the same person. So I think more and more, I think people are realizing, and the more well-meaning organizations are realizing, that the more authentic the person is in the workplace and the more they are themselves, the higher the chances they have of fulfilling their potential at work, and also of retaining with the organization longer. So I think that is changing over time, is my sense as well.
Super. Kanika, do you want to take a
I
shot?
think, if I can put my 2 bits in my name, I work with a lot of very traditional businesses also, who are our customers and people who we interact with on a daily basis, and a lot of startups, established startups, new age companies. And it's so funny you asked this, because we were just having a team discussion last week where, it's being authentic, being genuine, being yourself is so much more appreciated and respected at newer companies, younger companies, companies like Habikas or Nayas. But at the same time, if you had a woman cry in a traditional big organization due to whatever reason, it's not, I'm sorry to say, but it won't, not forget about it being accepted. You will be considered weak. You will be considered emotional. So I think there's still that, fine line between what is okay at business today, because it really depends on the kind of business environment that you're working in. Traditional businesses in India, or I would say older established businesses in India, still expect you to be a certain way, still expect you to dress a certain way, still expect you to put on that certain form of decorum. Or I don't know how much authenticity is actually encouraged or appreciated in these environments. Whereas in a company like mine, I would expect, not only expect, I would give someone priority over hiring, over being authentic, than someone who's trying to put on a face that the company would like to see. So I think we're still far off from being able to be ourselves in the workplace, especially as women. You have to be stronger, you have to prove to be smarter, you have to prove to be more emotionally stable. As a woman leader, there is a lot more expected of you on the EQ front than as a male leader. I see that on a day-to-day basis every day. So I think it's still going to take a lot of time for us to get there as society to, be able to overcome these hurdles or barriers or whatever you may call them.
Super. Thank you so much. Thanks to all three of you. I think it's been truly inspiring for me. And I think in many ways, there are takeaways for women who want to pursue entrepreneurship or to learn from the lessons that you people have shared through your experiences. It's been an absolute delight having the three of you join us today. Thank you so much on behalf of Business Insider.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure.